Everyone, thank you for coming today to this presentation. It's a real honor to be here with you and sharing this information. I hope this improves your presentations as well. My name is Luke Lefevre, and I'm the director of the Communication Training Center here at Texas Tech University. It's housed in the College of Media and Communication. We were created as part of the Quality Enhancement Plan to help improve communication across our campus, specifically oral and visual communication, either for peer audiences in the classroom or for mediated audiences. I'm also a department member in the Communication Studies Department, but I would be remiss if I didn't have some of my staff was able to be here today. So Harper, Karen, if you guys can stand up. I wouldn't be able to do what I do at the CTC if it wasn't for these people right here. So please give them a round of applause. I really appreciate everything they do at the center to make what we do possible for the institution. As I was saying, I'm also a member in the Department of Communication Studies, and I'm a faculty member there. A lot of this information is rooted with what we teach in the College of Media and Communication and the Communication Studies program. So if you're interested in a minor or a major or want more information, we're available to you through the CTC or through these other majors or minors. There's this great quote that Hunt, Scott, and Makrowski have, and it says, "The difference between knowing and teaching is communication." But I think if you take this teaching out and you put pretty much just anything in there that has to do with working with other people, communication is the key to that as well. Today, what I'm going to focus on is how we can create a connection and create meaning with our audience, specifically using visual aids. But I first want us to take and understand what the transactional model of communication is. So what I'd like to talk about are these 5 points with you here today. The first is the transactional model of communication. Then I'll talk about a visual aid history in very brief so we understand where these things come from. And then different slide categories, visual aid tips that you can take and start integrating into your PowerPoints right away. And then I'll talk to you about some of the other CTC workshops that we have for you that as a member attending this, you can come and use these workshops as well. Let's start here. Dean Barnlund, this was his transactional model of communication. Hard to understand right there. So let's break it down. Here's what he argued, is this, that essentially you as the speaker and the audience, you're both communicators, and you create meaning together. It's not just you delivering a message. It's how that message is interpreted and perceived by that audience, and how that audience is sending messages back to you when you're presenting, and how you co-create meaning together. So let's break this down. If we take and break this down, we have a communicator, or a presenter in this case, in this specific context. We encode a message that's sent through a channel. It's decoded on the other side by these other communicators. What's actually happening right now with us. So we have this two-way process. I'm sending it this way, but simultaneously, you people are also sending messages back to me. Right here. You're encoding messages, sending them back to me. I'm getting them this way. I'm decoding those. That's called feedback. This stuff can all be interfered with what's called noise. And we have really two different types of noise. We have internal noise, like we could be thinking about like, hey, there's pizza after this, I'm really hungry, that's the only reason I'm here. Or, so you're thinking about these other things that you might have to do. And there's external noises. Maybe there's humming in the room, maybe somebody's typing next to you or writing or texting, and those things can pull you out of it. So we have these different noises that distract us from creating meaning together. When we communicate, as a communicator, we have a field of experience. And really, the way that we can build off this field of experience is by giving examples, building our message so that other people can understand what we're saying. That audience, each of you, have a field of experience as well. And they build like this. So technically, each one of you would have a different circle. What we're trying to really do when we create a presentation and share our information with an audience is to find this area that overlaps so we can create shared meaning together. So that way, we have a message that we mutually understand in the same way. So essentially, if we break everything down, that communicator, and dissect it, this is what we have. So we have this channel, we have the speaker, we have the audience, we have feedback, we have message, we have noise, and this all takes place within a given context. So what does this mean here at Texas Tech? Guns up, right? So if I went and did this at another institution, I might get in trouble. But for here, in this context, it works. This is part of who we are. This is a symbol that we all understand. But in a different context, that might mean something very different. And I think Barnlund said it the best. Communication describes the evolution of meaning. It is the production of meaning rather than the production of messages that identifies communication. So before we move forward with all these cool tips with the history and the visual stuff, here's what I'd like you to do. And I'll give you, by yourself here, you can either type it or put it on your cell phone or write it on a piece of paper, whatever type of way you want to communicate it to yourself. Everything that we just went through, so I've numbered them 1 through 14 here. All by yourself, I'll give you a second to team up with somebody that's next to you. What were all these things that we broke down that's part of the transactional model that allows us to create meaning and understanding with the people that we're interacting with? So I'll give you approximately 2 minutes by yourself. See what you can get through 1 through 14. You can use your cell phone, number 1 through 14. What are all these parts? Everybody who's a College of Media and Communication or Comp Studies major, the pressure's on right now. If you're still working, that's fine. Here's what I'll allow you to do now. You can partner with somebody next to you. If you don't know who they are, introduce yourself. And then share what you have on your list so far. See if you agree, if you disagree. If you can, I'll give you just a few more minutes here in your pair to see if you can get all 14. And then we'll go through these together. And then we'll introduce this next phase of what we're going to be talking about here today.
Yeah. Just like I did.
Okay, so you got the speaker, you good there? Yes. So we always have to send it to yourself. So the arrow's like 7, that's our channel. So right now, the channel that I'm using on my verbal line on for work, I also have your visual. So that's your channel, and then what's the channel? I'm encoding that.
I have no idea. Okay, so that's
Does that help? So that kind of gives you the front half. So you flip that. What does it look like? How are we doing over here? Oh, that's absolutely fine. The arrows. Good. Good. It looks like you almost did almost all of it. That's awesome. Hey, this team's not going to Oh, you guys doing over here?
I just I don't know.
No.
But at least we know what Bob is. I think so.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's Encoding. Yeah. John's got it. Harper, you got this?
We have like a word encode. I thought it was encode the message and send it, and then 5 is the noise that blocks it.
You got this. All right, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out.
That's how it works.
All right, let's bring it back here and see if we can figure this out together. So, number 1, what do we think? We'll do the shout out together. What's number 1?
Communicator.
Okay, communicator, speaker, absolutely. What's number 2?
Channel.
It has to be through a channel, right? So it has to be sent through a channel. All right, Clayton.
Yeah.
All right, what's number 3?
Encoding.
Encoding, and what also has to happen?
Decoding.
Decoding of that message. What's number 4? What's being sent through that channel?
Message.
The message. Your message is being sent through there. What's number 5?
Noise.
Noise. Okay, good. How about number 6?
Communicator.
Communicator or audience. I'd take either one of those. How about number 7?
Channel.
Channel.
It would be the channel again. And then 8 would be
Encoding.
Decoding.
encoding and decoding. Number 9, I flipped it around here. What's that one?
Field of experience.
That would be what's being sent back from you folks. Feedback. Feedback. Okay. Number 10, we know this one. Noise. What's number 11? Field of experience. Number 12.
Field of experience.
And 13, what we're gunning for, what we want. Yeah, that shared meaning that we create with an audience. And 14, I just couldn't put the big circles around our context. Very good. And here, you folks did a nice job with that. But to bring it back to what Barnland argued, is that we're both communicating. And that this process of human communication is dynamic, it's continuous, it's circular, it's unrepeatable. You can't ever take and repeat this moment exactly again before. It's irreversible, and it's highly complex, what we do every day. We know that we're both communicating. But when we give presentations, it used to be that we had the composition of the message, or what we call the content, and the delivery, like the nonverbal and verbal aspects of what I'm presenting. But due to the advent of technology, like you're seeing here, we now have a third component that we can use to improve how we create meaning with an audience. And that's via this technology, or PowerPoint, what we often use, on how we build slides. So what we want to do today is I'm going to focus very specifically on some tips that we can do to build this stuff up. I'll start with talking about a brief history of visual aids and how these came about. So if we look at a brief history of visual aids, we can trace it all the way back to France, when they found a number of different types of murals written on caves. 1500 BCE, you see it right there. Then we have the hieroglyphics, how they depicted certain things that people could look at and understand how these visuals and what they represented. And then public speaking was introduced, and we had logography that came with that, and oral communication, how that type of stuff was introduced. And then Catholics used stained glass windows. And the reason they did this was to tell stories to a largely illiterate population to depict certain things that they could understand. And then we have this proto-graph bar. It was actually invented by a bishop, the first really bar chart to be used. And this gentleman right here, Rudolf Toppler, he created the first comic strip. And he started to use those that were published in newspapers. And I believe it was France. And then in 1945, police departments started to use these overhead projectors, which was then quickly adopted for use in education and the business world. And then, not too shortly after that, some of us may remember this, right? This 35 millimeter slide carousel, where you put pictures in, you'd click, it would move to the next one. This is actually where the term slide deck comes from that we use when we give PowerPoints. This is where that term originated from. And then in 1987, we were introduced to what we're talking about here tonight, PowerPoint. Now with PowerPoint, we can dissect and break down slides into really 3 main categories. The first type of category is a document. You've seen this before, right? Where people essentially put documents up and read them to you. The second type of slide is something called the teleprompter slide. It's like this, and let's walk through it. So the 177 rule, what is it? Have only one main point, one main idea per slide, insert only 7 lines of text maximum, use only 7 words of per line maximum. The question though is, does this really work? Is this method really good advice? Is this really an appropriate, effective visual? This slide has just 7 bullet points. The teleprompter. And then we have this third category, a presentation type of slide. This is where we actually display visual information. This is where we can build our visual narrative. Because actually this technology that you're looking at right now is a limited space, low resolution technology. It's not for displaying textual information. It's for displaying visual information. If we move to this, and here's really the culprit. In 1987, they gave us a template when they built PowerPoint of all these different slide templates that we can use. And For the most part, they haven't been updated since 1987. But we know now more about how we can visually communicate to supplement what we're saying with the composition of our message, as well as with the delivery of our message. So this, in order to take and be more effective, we need to decide, do we fall into which one of these three different types of categories? I would argue we need to take and move to here, okay? To display visual information, or what I like to call, we need to build what's called cinematic slide design into our PowerPoints. Through cinematic slide design, I'll give you 3 tips here today. And these are things that we go more in depth about with our presentations at the CTC. But for today, I'll give you 3 main things that you can walk out of here and be able to start integrating immediately into your PowerPoint presentations. So with these 3 visual aid tips, let's start with tip number 1 here. And really this tip has to do with text and images. The first one, and I'm sure you've seen this, right? Where you have the text separate from the picture, and then you have the white space. These 3 things right now, the way that they're laid out, are competing against each other. It's not seamless. It's hard for us to decide if we're going to look at the white, we're going to read the text, or look at the picture. An easy fix for us with our presentations is to simply do this. Move the text within the image. It's the same exact image. There's no white space. It's easier to look at. It doesn't make your audience fight with what information it needs to find out. Okay? So that's tip number 1 with the images and texts. But there's also a reciprocal, and I would argue a symbiotic relationship between text and image. So for example, we have this picture. I can make you interpret it in a number of different ways. I can say, water's the best sports drink. You look at that picture a certain way. I can say, recycle. You look at that picture now with a different meaning. Or I can simply say, 60 million plastic water bottles are thrown away every day in the United States. And now you look at that picture differently. It also works the other way around. The picture can influence the text. So 15 billion gallons of soda are sold each year in the United States. Refreshing drink there, it looks very good. But I can also just simply change that. And now that meaning has drastically changed. So like I said, there's a symbiotic and reciprocal relationship between how you use the image and how you use the text on a PowerPoint. You'll often see this common mistake too. You'll have a great picture that you want to incorporate, but it's very hard for us to see what the text is here because there's not a good place for us to paste or put that text that we want to put in the picture. So this right here is actually a text or a shape box. I put a gradient on it and made it semi-transparent. What you can do, there's actually an arrange button. If you look at your PowerPoint screen in the top right, you click on arrange, what comes in is this option right here, reorder objects. With reorder objects, it will give you a picture that then looks like this. What I've done with this gradient, this image that I made semi-transparent, I've put it between the image and the text. And now you get a picture that looks like this that doesn't compete with the text that you put on it. It's a seamless fix that allows it not to compete against each other, but work together. So instead of this, what we had previously, we now have this, okay? So that's tip number 1 in relation to text and images and how those things work together. Let's look at tip number 2. Tip number 2, eye flow and emphasis. Make no mistake, PowerPoints are glance media. It's like when you drive down the highway and you see a billboard. You need to be able to get what that idea is immediately and understand seamlessly for the people that you're trying to get at, what is it that you're trying to convey? What is that shared meaning that you want them to have with you? Or the information that you want to share or have resonate with that audience? That's what this stuff is here. PowerPoint is no different. Now, in the United States, we'll use Pac-Man to help us with this. We are taught to read in a very specific way. Where do we start to read? To the left, right? Right, exactly where Pac-Man. Our eye starts there. And we move across the page because that's what we've been trained to do. So our eyes move kind of in this Z-shaped dimension. When we look at eye flow, and we'll do this game here, so I want you to, everybody take their pointer finger, I'm going to put a picture up. I want you to use your finger and follow where your eyes go when we do this, okay? I'll put this image up. So when you look at this, I want you to see everybody's hand up here pointing right at the screen, all right? Where do your eyes go? Okay, I saw some people. When you read the text, and then where does this gentleman take us?
Away from it.
Yeah, so it takes us off the page, right? It's a non-directive image, and it hurts what we're trying to do. A simple fix is this. We can make this a directive image, where when we look at this gentleman whose name is Andrew, it looks at, you look at it, read the text, and then you go back to Andrew. I keep you on the slide. And that's an easy thing for us to do with our iFlow. How we arrange things on our slides is really important for us as communicators, because we want people to stay with the message, not take and leave the page and then start thinking about something else, or the slide that we're trying to show.
So is that because the Andrew's eyes and face is looking that way?
Exactly. Yep. He leads you to exactly what I want you to look at. That's a great question. Yes, Andrew's eyes lead you to what I want you to look at. So sometimes you'll see people set up images like this last one. It leads you off the page. Or they'll set somebody up and they're looking out instead of at the information you want to share. Good question. So we have directive images. I also, and you probably didn't even notice this, you just saw this slide a few minutes ago. Right here. If you remember, I did this. I emphasized something, and I took something away. It's still there, but I made you look at what I wanted you to look at. Very easy. And all that is a shape box over that I've made semi-transparent. It matches the background, and I can lead you to write exactly what I want you to look at. Now, Nancy Duarte, she has this great quote, and she says, "Nothing commands like credibility, especially when it comes to presenting data." And most of the time in higher ed, we're all presenting some sort of data. When we look at this piece of data, though, it's very difficult, right? Why? It's busy, somebody said.
Pixelated.
It's perfect. What did you say?
Pixelated.
It's pixelated a little bit, yeah. Do you know what to look at? There's no emphasis, right? We don't know where it wants us to lead. So when we start playing with data and we're communicating that visually to be most effective, we need to understand that there are really three parts that work together to get us to a certain outcome. The first is the background. The second here is the data. The third is the emphasis, what we want to have stand out in that presentation. That should all get us to this, the results. And the way we can do that, and here's a generic example that I put together for us. Example, here's a background grid, all right? Here's the data we want to share. Perhaps this is the piece of data that I want to make or emphasize to have stand out. When I put these things together, it works like this. There's other ways then, which I'll show you here a little bit later, to move us to a certain part to look at on there. It's seamless. The background isn't competing with the data, and I know that you're starting to look at the red thing that I want to have stand out. So how we start to do those things, really that iFlow and emphasis, which leads us to our third tip, is really font and scale. And font size and scale and how these things work together so our audience can actually understand this information that we're sharing with them. So font size. The big tip here, if you're going to walk with one thing out, you want to use a type of sans serif font. There's a reason for this. Let me show you. This example right here. This is not sans serif. There's a narrowing of the font. What happens is when people get further away with those narrowing fonts, when we project it on a screen like this, those parts start to disappear. This one right here is a sans serif. This is Helvetica New, I think. Helvetica New, condensed bold. This doesn't narrow like that. That way, no matter how far away your audience is, the eye can still make those things out. When it narrows, it can't. So choosing your font so your audience can actually see it is really important. So sans serif font is really important. When you're trying to make a decision about how to do that, if you want to double cross-check if they can see it or not, here's a tip. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you have these three different types of things. And I'll show you them here in a minute. On your PowerPoint, it's right here. This is the normal view. This is where you do most of your work when you're creating your PowerPoint. The next one is called the slide sorter view. And the third one is the presentation view, and that's what you're seeing right now. If we look specifically at this slide sorter view, and then right to the right of it, and I'll show you what that looks like. Right to the right, there's this toggle switch. And you put it and slide it all the way over to 66%, you'll get a view that looks like this right here. If you can read it there, looking at your laptop, when you're preparing your PowerPoint, if you can read it there and make it out, your audience will be able to make it out as well. So that's a good guideline when you're checking to see, is my font too small? Is it too big? Can I not see it? Will my audience be able to see it? This is a good cross-check. You can simply do that. Put this in the slide sorter view, as you can see right here. Here are the 3 buttons that I was talking about. And then here's the toggle switch, 66%. If you can read it here when you're looking at it, your audience will be able to read it as well. Okay? So those are my big 3 tips for you. But the biggest tip that I can give you when you're designing PowerPoints is this one right here. And this principle should rule everything. You're sharing ideas when you build slides. You're not sharing slides. So it doesn't matter the number of slides. It matters how you're trying to get that idea to create that shared meaning. It could take you 50 slides. It could take you 100 slides. Well, I'll have you do a game here at the end in just a minute. You can tell me how many slides you think you've seen on my PowerPoint. So slides are about sharing ideas, not the slides themselves, okay? If you're sharing and conveying your ideas to build that shared meaning, that's the fundamental point. Now, like I said, but I want to come back to this. The center, Communication Training Center, is housed in the College of Media and Communication. What you've seen here is really kind of a watered down version of some of the things that we do in all our workshops to build our PowerPoint presentations. We also run a PowerPoint, fundamentals of PowerPoint. Bi-weekly, we run these workshops. I have 7 of them I'll share with you. This professor here at the campus, she came to us when she was working on a PowerPoint. Here's what she emailed back. I want to share this with you. What I appreciate is that along the way, I received some life lessons in communication, which will benefit me in the future. She's already reached out to us again for another PowerPoint presentation. So again, we're a resource for you to be effective no matter where you go with your PowerPoint presentations. So that's the fundamentals of PowerPoint. We also do a poster presentation design. The college is doing their competition right now. With the poster presentation design last year, everybody who came to our workshop placed here at the graduate school. So we teach things like this, how to do the layout. Typical viewer's 5 feet away. We know we should be 150 point font in the title. We know the headings should be 48 point font. The body text, 32. The captions, between 24 and 32. We give you guidelines for this. One of those people that actually placed here, she took her poster presentation, she's a math major, to a national competition and won. She emailed me the next day saying, I just want to let you know I won. She had a phenomenal thing. She's thanking us, but we should be thanking her. She came with great ideas. We worked with her in a personalized workshop. Boom, and she took home the win right there for Texas Tech. So that's the poster presentation design. We also work with classroom communication and how to be most effective in the classroom as a communicator. Particularly, we focus on our workshops with clarity, talking about how to build teacher clarity, teacher immediacy, and teacher caring. These are all free instruments that have been published. So we have run them for 2 or 3 different GPTIs across the institutions with different majors because they want to see what's happening in their classroom. We run those, they're already set up in Qualtrics. They come back, we give them the feedback, and then we talk about if they want to make adjustments or not. And then we have the advanced PowerPoint techniques. This is where we go into the high-end stuff. I touched on maybe 2 of those that are getting close to that today. But everything that you've seen in this PowerPoint slide, we teach you how to do. So you can do it and be effective communicators with how you're using your visual aids. Right here, this was Catherine. I don't remember exactly, she studies hawks. I don't remember the scientific name for it, but she took it here and won right here at our Texas Tech Annual Biological Sciences Symposium, and she emailed me the next day saying, hey, I wanted to thank you so much. This is the first oral presentation I had to give, and I won. So we really appreciate getting that feedback too from our students. So that's the advanced PowerPoint. We also have Data Tell Me a Story where we talk about how to start to build different types of slides that are effective. And right here you see this is another mask I put on to draw your eye even further to this. So that's Data Tell Me a Story. We've also coupled this with a workshop that we just started running called PowerPoints, Charts, and Graphs, which has been really excellent for us so far. And we talk about how you can work with live data and not live data. So live data are things that you have like in Excel and then you can import it. Non-live data is when you just have the image or the slide that you need to figure out how to make this work for PowerPoint. So we take and do those things with live and non-live data. For example, like this. This is actually heading in a pretty good direction. But like we talked about with the background, it's still kind of pulling us away. So we take this and we work with you to get it to look like this, and then we teach you how to direct the eye to exactly what you want that audience to look at. So that's what we do with our PowerPoints, charts, and graphs. And then finally, one of our absolutely most popular workshops is this oral defense presentation. And with this workshop, what we do is we teach you how to storyboard these ideas. So many of you who have written either manuscripts for conference presentation, your thesis, your dissertation, we take you through a process where you can take these ideas that you've worked on for 6 months, a year, multiple years, and distill this information using sticky notes in this little handy form that I've built for you, where you can take and start placing these ideas on here, and then we can move them around. So then that blue strip is where you move your best ideas, and we can build your PowerPoint right off of the ideas that you've communicated to yourself. So that's our oral defense presentation. But to bring it back to everything that we just talked about, Dale Leathers, who was an NCA president, he had this great quote called "Human interaction is a quest for meaning." And I would like to add my 2 cents into this. I would completely agree with that, in that human interaction is a quest for meaning. And visual aids can help us in that quest if we do them correctly. So for today, what we talked about as part of this presentation is the transactional model of communication, the visual aid history, some slide categories so we know what we're dealing with, some visual aid tips, and finally I introduced you to the CTC workshops. What I'd like to do now is open it up for questions, but I'd like to finish with this, is that the CTC is a resource for you, and we really want to make sure that every one of you feel like you have the power to present and be effective and competent and give messages that resonate with an audience. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you at this point about anything that you've seen here. Bring out the pizza, is that? Yes.
How much time would you say it took you to put together this presentation with all of the features?
With all the features. This one, I had some stuff already built and then put in, but I'd say when you're thinking about building PowerPoints like this, you're looking at between 8 and 10 hours. If you're looking at doing it the right way, I would argue. So if you break it down and start figuring out what your points are and how you're gonna map that out, I do a lot of storyboarding where I draw it out and then I start building it this way. Yes.
I had a question. I've been at too many presentations in my lifetime where they were very visually attractive, but I didn't remember anything. Can you talk about the
Sure.
link between amount of content? Because, I mean, you said 50, 100 slides. I'm thinking nobody's going to
Yeah.
be alive after 100 slides.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would answer your first part like this, is your slide shouldn't be about decoration. Your slide should be, everything that you put on there should resonate with the point and the information that you're trying to convey to that audience. If it's just for decoration, that's window dressing. It should resonate with the point that you're trying to make. Just like when we talk about the composition of your message, how you organized it, what information are you including, same thing follows suit with this. But then Dean Perlmutter asked a great question. So how many slides do you think I had?
120.
120?
112,
112? That's not, how many?
70 or 80.
I think there's 110 slides. And that's when it gets back, let's see here. 112, that's right.
It wasn't a leading question. I really didn't realize that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, it did not feel like 112.
Yeah. And I think that, Dean Perlmutter is getting at a really important point here. And it goes back to what I said earlier. It's not about sharing slides. It's about sharing your ideas. If it's about sharing your ideas, then the number of slides goes out the window. Because we used to teach in our public speaking classes, like you take your length of the speech plus 1 divided by 2, that's the number of slides you should have. But we've moved away from that. We can do much more high-end things with how we communicate information visually and how we use slides. So that's a really good point. To reiterate Dean Perlmutter's question, it's not about decoration, and it should always be about conveying your ideas most effectively. Yes?
How do you feel about Prezi?
Prezi? I have no issues with Prezi. My warning is this. Whenever you use Prezi, it's just a 3-dimensional space. All these same rules still apply. So the only thing that's happening with Prezi is they're moving you in a 3-dimensional space. But all these same rules apply. Like we talk about contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity, space. All these same things that you saw here, these tips, still carry over to if you use Prezi.
Yeah, I know some people don't like the movement, like they're on a roller coaster or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But
But did that answer your question?
it did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So I'm sorry I was late, but what I saw was excellent. I do have a question, though, going back to the slide that I commented that was great.
Yes.
If you go
Yep.
back to that, for instance, and that has a whole lot of information on it, and if in the course of that, I want to, for instance, show all the different efficiencies, because I know what that slide is, all the
Yep.
different efficiencies, is it best to have, if you want to be able to compare everything in one, is it best to just show that at the end, whereas you point them to exactly what you want to see and then you bring it together? Or is it better to do it at the beginning and then break it down? Is there an order best to convey the busyness of that?
Sure. Let me answer it this way. What you could do is you could do it either way that you actually suggested.
Right.
You could show it originally here, and then what you could do, if you were coming in and you wanted to display the slide, I would talk about what point you want to emphasize first. And then we would talk about how we could grade those out and draw their eye. Then move them to another one, then another one, and then you could build to showing them the whole thing.
Right.
So you could do it either, starting, here's holistically, now I want to break it down, or you could say, here's holistically, now I want to break it down this way, or switch that.
Okay, so
So-
neither one's preferred.
I would say it would depend on the audience and what their expectations are and how you want to convey that message. Because I've seen people, they'll put it all up and then say, here's what we have, and then move them into what they want them to look at and break it down from there. But the other way, like we've had a number of doctoral students come that are going out on the job market. And they're like, I'm afraid somebody's going to ask me a question that I don't know about and I want to have my data there. Actually, in PowerPoint, you can build, I call them wormholes, but they're actually called hyperlinks. You can build invisible boxes throughout this whole thing where I can just take and click, jump me to a different part of my PowerPoint. I can build another hyperlink that brings me right back to the spot I left. So you could also do it like that too, if you're worried about not having that data. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because sometimes, again, less is more, and so again, I think that a lot of my students would think, okay, if I show this one thing and just talk about all the different points, but again, everything's there at once.
Yes.
Right, yeah, okay.
And it's kind of like we talk about not handing out handouts before we start the presentation because people read the handouts
Right.
and then when they come back to you, they're lost. It's the same thing there. We don't want to lose them, but we could start by showing them, but then direct them to what we want them to see piece by piece and then build the whole or do it the inverse. Show them the whole and then break it down piece by piece. So you can do it either inductively or deductively.
Let me ask one more question.
Sure.
Dr. James, can I interrupt because you're asking something really important that I think is a block to appreciating and doing what you say is that I call it engineer insecurity, but it applies to all of us in the sciences, social sciences, is that we're afraid of coming up there and not showing how massive our data was,
Yeah.
how big our study was, and how much work we did, and how many references we have. And so our instinct is just to pour it on into those slides to overwhelm the audience with that. The dangers of that are very famous. A lot of you are probably too young to have heard of this, but if you go online and enter Challenger Launch Decision PowerPoint, you will see the most famous PowerPoint in history. And that is when the Morton Thiokol engineers did a presentation at NASA about whether to launch the shuttle Challenger. And I think it was like 112 slides. At the bottom of the slide, like 27, bullet point 7 in tortuous engineering speak. Translated in English, it was, if you launch, it's probably going to kill everybody.
And it's in super small
Very-
font too.
He was buried way below because the engineers couldn't turn off their instinct to just like, okay, I want to cover every base and show every bit of data.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, like when I work with the Center for Biotechnology and Genomics in their science comm class, that's a battle that what Dean Perlmutter has identified. That's a real issue. Is people want to put everything up there because they think I have to show everything. Well, you can show them everything, but then break down what's important, and that really gets to that. We have the background, we have the data, we have what we want to emphasize, and that's really the results of our data.
That's why I wondered, was there a natural progression of build up or start complicated and break down? If there was a
Yeah.
best way of doing it.
I think it depends on, which way you're trying to accomplish. So you could take it and build it up, or you start with the up and then break it down. I think it really depends.
So my other question, and again, this just may be my problems, but when the one where you showed the text and then the photo,
Yeah,
for instance, for me, and maybe again it's years of doing it, the text, my eyes go to text,
sure.
and the photo I'll look at it, but the text is what I'm on there. I'm reading it. I'm doing whatever it is on the text, and so the way in which you grade out the one, you know, when you put it and kind of, is it best to have the text with the photo rather than separately, or is that, am I goofy?
Oh, I see, I think I know.
My eye's just drawing to the text and then the photo is secondary?
Are you talking about,
The one with the individual on the left side or the right side?
oh, I know what you're talking
Text
about.
on the right and left. When I look at that, my eyes go to text.
Yep,
And I'll look at the image, but I mean, I'm right back at the text. And I don't know if that's just, you know, because I'm
the Andrew slide. Where,
Yeah.
Yep.
See, I always go to the text, and the other thing is, to me, kind of secondary and,
sure. With this one,
Yeah.
the argument that's made though is, because I understand you're dominated by the text, you like to go to the text first.
Yeah.
Yep,
I can't
and,
help it.
yep, and this is, the problem with this is, when you look at the text and then look at the picture, it wants to lead you off. If you're actually gonna keep it this way, this alignment isn't bad, it's just that Andrew leads you off. You could switch, and PowerPoint allows you to switch this photo
Right.
and have him look back in, so you could set it up like that. But the problem that you have is, many people aren't text dominant when they look at it. I think estimates I've seen are about 20% of the population is actually text dominant. Picture dominant is about 80%.
Okay.
And so that way, you can still convey the same message here, but allows you to stay on that slide.
Okay.
Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wondered, is there a way to, if there was a message on the text that you wanted to incorporate it with the picture or something? Because again, I moved to the text.
Sure,
And I don't even notice, I hate to say that he's looking to the right,
sure, yeah,
but
yeah.
that's my failing.
No, yeah, thank you for the question. Yes,
Something I like to add on to that, and when it comes to images, because I'm a photographer, is that something else with images is that I seem to direct to like the brightest part of it.
yes, good point.
So if your image is bad, in the sense of like the brightest part of the image is not what they want you to look at, then you might want to either use another image or
Yeah.
fix it if you can.
Did everybody hear that feedback? Yeah, those are really good points as well. Very good, thank you. Other questions? Yes,
So are staff and non-majors allowed to come to your presentation?
absolutely. Yes.
And so I can start telling everybody they need to go there?
They are more than welcome to attend any of our workshops.
Do
If
you need to register?
You do not. We are walk-in, but if you have like a group that you want us to work with, so you bring up a good point. We actually have what are called signature workshops, which we run bi-weekly, and it's on a rotation. Our calendar is up on our webpage. We also have custom workshops. So if you had a group of people that you want us to come and give a presentation to that works best for your time, we can come to you and do that presentation as well. You just have to reach out to me. And then once you're part of those, or like this workshop today, we have what are called personalized workshops, where every Monday and Friday between 11 and 2 people can just walk in with what they need help with, and we're there to help them. So we have those three. So signature, custom, and personalized. Yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
What were those times again?
The personalized workshop hours are between 11 and 2 on Mondays and Fridays.
Where do you find your stock photos?
Stock photos, that's a great question. I actually have resources I can give, because when I gave a presentation about a month ago, I think it was, at the Com Studies Society, they asked me that. I have a free website that has people where they upload them and you can get them. iStock photos, high end, where you're gonna pay more money, that's one place that you can go. And another one, I think Getty Image actually bought it. Yeah, and so those ones are together. So I usually look at iStock photo first, but there's also a free website if you want. I think they have the name out there of everybody that attended. I can send you the link for it. Because I think it was Megan that asked about this at the Com Study Society, about where those free photos are. I can't remember the website offhand, do you remember? Yeah. But I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So when you did you were talking about making your slides smaller so you can like see the font size and kind of
Oh,
see all that.
yeah, the
Well, when you
perspective.
did the slide thing on, like you showed us like the actual like thing.
Yeah,
at the
this
bottom
one's-
and
this
you
one-
put it onto a slide. Yeah, but you showed us like where it says 50% and you said 66.
Yeah, you wanted
How
at
did you get
66.
that onto the slide and how did you move that like?
Oh, this right here? You want to know how I built that? Oh,
Did
okay.
you just take a screenshot of that little part and then?
No, I built it. This is actually, I'll zoom in for you and I'll explain how I built it for you.
Insane.
So I'll go to this view. So you can see it. I'll make it larger too. So right here, all I've done, these are actually, this is a shape that's a box. These are two boxes that I've made into a plus sign. This is actually just a line I've put on here. I've made it gray, and I've made the font size bigger. And then I put a circle on here. And I put a circle right here so it looks just like the one down here. And then all I did was put a path animation on here for this to go here and then this information to fade in when I get there. So it's
Simple as that.
it is, yeah. And these right here, these are all just boxes. This is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes that I put there. This is 4 boxes. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. I just made them like icons because those are what we see when we go on to it. So that's how I did it.
Okay.
And if you want to,
Noted.
if you want to cheat when you build it, something that I learned when I was working with my dad when we were putting on the addition of our house. He took the chalk line and he put the chalk line down, so we built all the rafters the same way. You can do the same thing. You can take a screenshot of this down here, blow it up, put it in the back, build your stuff on it, and then delete it afterwards.
That's what I thought you did, but
It'll
it
be
seemed too
seamless.
clear to be like a screenshot of that little of a picture.
Yeah. So they're actually just text. They're just shape boxes that I built.
Okay. Okay.
That answer your question, Madison?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other? Yes.
What about videos?
How to embed videos? Yes, that's actually in our advanced PowerPoint techniques, we teach you how to do that. It's pretty seamless. We'll teach you how to download it and embed it straight into your PowerPoint. Because one thing I found is, like, sometimes you'll go somewhere and have to give a presentation, the internet's spotty, you put a hyperlink in there. It's actually right under, so you can go here, insert, and then video once it's downloaded, and you can actually drag the file in or browse and build it right in there. We put the video right in. So it's actually fairly seamless on how to do it. So, but if you have questions, I can actually give you a write-up directions on how to do it too. But we also teach that at our workshops. Yeah, Harper.
Just to give more information, there are snags you run into when you switch across platforms from Mac to PC.
That's true.
We address all those. I mean, sometimes there isn't anything you can do, but at least knowing, like they say in G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. We do that. We don't tell you.
Yep. Thanks, Harper. Did that answer your question? Yeah, because one of the things, I like to do, like, I don't ever use the computers. I always bring the one I feel safe with, that I've worked with, that I know it's going to do what I want it to do. And then I always make sure I build all the videos in because I don't want anything going wrong. I want to make sure that it's going to work out just right. Good question.
I was going to
Yes.
offer another resource for stock for images.
Yeah.
Is just do a Google search and just put the name, the sort of type of image that you're looking for, and say plus Creative Commons. And that way, the artist has already given you permission
that's
to
great.
use it in any way.
Plus Creative Commons.
Yes.
Okay. Did everybody hear that? So you put in what you're looking for, plus sign, Creative Commons, and they've already given permission for use of it. Great. That's a great tip. Thank you. Yeah.
Was that Creative Commons?
Creative Commons,
Yeah.
right? Yes, Commons.
2 words.
Commons or comments?
Common.
COMMONS.
Commons, okay. The garden commons.
Any other questions? If you're still thinking, that's fine. Harper and Karen, who work with me at the CTC, they have feedback forms. If you take a minute, there's a front and back side, and if you could fill that out for me, that's really important. For us at the CTC, it gives feedback about the usefulness of the information that we've shared, and we can adapt for the future to make sure it resonates most clearly with the people who attend our presentation. So, thank you all for coming. I really enjoyed your questions. It was fun working with you.